The great failed romances of the 20th century. First you start laughing, then you cry. The great failed romances of the 20th century. Love may be a sham, but we still gotta try.
Welcome to the Great Failed Romances of the 20th Century. I'm singer, songwriter, and historian Teddy Gray.
And I'm a phony. A no-good, stupid phony, Sam Kaufman. So, Teddy, which couple will we be exploiting for financial gain today?
Bold of you to assume I make any money off of these.
Oh, wait, what? I quit my job for this. This was my backup plan.
Today we'll be taking a page from the romance of Joyce Maynard and J.D. Salinger.
Oh, very nice. Fun fact about J.D. Salinger, Teddy. The J.D. stands for Just Dance.
No, actually it was Jerome David.
And actually it was Jerome David. That's you. That's what you sound like.
Joyce Maynard was born into a family of artists in New Hampshire. While her mother and father never had a large amount of success in their respective fields, they wanted to make sure that Joyce's career path was different, and from a very young age, they instilled in her a belief that she would accomplish great things.
Their assumptions would turn out to be true, as by the time Joyce had graduated high school, she was already in the early stages of her literary career, winning numerous awards and writing regularly for 17 magazine. After being accepted to Yale, Joyce was approached by the New York Times to write an article about growing up in the 60s. It was published under the title, An 18-Year-Old Looks Back on Life.
After her article was printed, Joyce received sackfuls of fan letters, but one stood out in particular, due to both its content and its author. It was a letter that praised her prose and warned her of the pitfalls of early success.
And who was that writer, you may ask? Albert Einstein
J.D. Salinger.
The acclaimed author of Catcher in the Rye was already years into his retreat from the public eye, and receiving a letter from him was like getting a glimpse of Bigfoot in a red hunting hat. After sending letters back and forth for a few weeks, the two writers finally met in person at Salinger's New Hampshire house. After finding they had a mutual attraction to each other, Joyce very quickly moved in with Salinger, where she would spend the next 8 months.
While Joyce was eager to impress the reclusive author, she quickly found that there was very little she could do right.
Salinger was a complicated man. After fighting in World War II, getting his heart broken numerous times, and dealing with the stresses of fame after the release of The Catcher in the Rye, he had retreated into a world unto himself.
He wanted nothing more than to be left alone by the public and live a simple life, a task that was made impossible because of the cult-like fan base he had amassed. Unfortunately for Joyce, a relationship with J.D. meant dealing with all his baggage and having nearly every aspect of her life micromanaged.
Remember when you tried to micromanage my life? If I remember correctly, you gave up after about 2 hours and said something about me being a lost cause. What did you mean by that?
Every day, J.D. had a set routine that Joyce was expected to follow. They would spend the morning meditating, write all afternoon, and spend the night watching old film reels and listening to big band music from the 30s and 40s.
Clearly, Salinger was fixating on his youth and the loss of innocence. Perhaps he saw something pure and untouched in Joyce that he himself had lost long ago.
However, for Joyce, who was merely an 18-year-old who had been pulled out of college, life surely had more in store for her than old Glenn Miller records and Humphrey Bogart flicks.
Their differences became more and more apparent, and 8 months into their relationship, Salinger discovered that someone from Time magazine had acquired his number, and was planning on writing a feature revolving around his relationship with Joyce.
This outraged the famously private Salinger, and he was convinced that Joyce had been the one to leak his number to the press. He ousted her from his house, and their relationship was no more. However, this was not the end of Joyce Maynard's involvement with J.D. Salinger.
You see, years down the road, Joyce would hear stories from women about their relationship with J.D. Salinger that seemed almost identical to hers. J.D. reaching out to young girls, writing them letters, having them come live with him, and eventually tossing them away as they failed to live up to his impossibly high standards.
This rightfully made Joyce very upset, and in retaliation, she wrote a tell-all memoir about her time with Salinger. She even went as far as to auction off the old letters that Salinger had written her.
As a matter of fact, I was the one who bought them. Dearest Joyce, although I haven't been able to get hard in years, you make me wish I could. Gross. And worth every penny.
This was during a time when information on Salinger was heavily sought after, and Joyce's book and letters brought her some new attention. However, it was also the final nail in the coffin for any chance of reconciliation, as her actions enraged Salinger, who felt it was a betrayal.
While Salinger never published another word after 1965, Joyce's career was undeniably prolific, and she ended up publishing over 20 books throughout her career, which still continues to this day. Good for her.
However, for the rest of her life, she will still always be linked to J.D. Salinger, partly due to actions of her own, but mostly due to the media's still persistent hunger for all things Salinger. It will likely be a topic that is brought up to Maynard in every interview she does until the end of time.
Which is a bummer, because she's a powerhouse writer in her own right, and her career deserved to be recognized for far more than a few months she spent with a genius who happened to be a creep, or vice versa.
Hey, you ever actually read this book? Holden's definitely gay, right?
Not everyone is gay, Sam.
I refuse to recognize your argument, and I will not respond to it. So Teddy, tell us about the song. I hear it's indirectly responsible for the death of John Lennon.
While I wish I could take credit for that, you're mistaken.
The song is called To Be A Muse, and it takes place at the end of their relationship, as Joyce finally leaves JD's house for good after 8 months of being controlled and manipulated. While letting loose on the tyrannical author, Joyce speaks for all the women throughout history who have been relegated to being muses and not seen as artists in their own right. Una O'Neill, Zelda Fitzgerald,
Princess Peach.
All of these women haven't been given their due, and instead are forced to live in the shadows of the men that they inspired.
Well, technically, Peach did get her own game in 2005, so progress?
Thank you for joining us, and enjoy To Be A Muse.
I mean, the game wasn't very good, but, you know, Peach is just a woman, so how much can you expect from a broad? It's Mario's world.
You dreamed I'd jump right off the page. My God, my rider and my sage. If this is life with you, then I wholeheartedly refuse to be a muse, to be a muse, to be a muse. I don't ponder where the ducklings go. I don't keep my kings in the back row. You're no guru, and I'm not beholden to you. I'm not your muse, not just a muse, to be a muse. Trapped inside the shadow of my captor. Time for me to start another chapter. Sure as birds will keep on flying, I'll walk out and keep on trying. I feel The great failed romances of the 20th century. First you start laughing, then you cry. The great failed romances of the 20th century. Love may be a sham, but we still gotta try.